Imagine a Supreme Court justice acting as the lead prosecutor.
Right, and calling in this whole parade of completely conflicting witnesses.
Yeah, and holding a capital murder trial at like 2:00 a.m. in his own private living room. I mean, it sounds completely absurd.
Oh, absolutely, like a plot from some dystopian thriller.
Exactly. But looking through this fascinating stack of historical transcripts and, well, analytical outlines you brought us today.
The ones examining the final hours of Jesus' life in the Gospel of Mark.
Right. That is exactly the kind of judicial nightmare we are looking at.
It really is an astounding collapse of order. And, I mean, that's the mission of our deep dive today, really, to explore this profound paradox of power at the heart of the text.
Because the documents you've gathered, they frame this entire historical and theological narrative as the ultimate collision.
They do. We are looking at this wild intersection of human malice, immense moral compromise, and a staggering divine restraint.
Which is incredibly compelling because regardless of your personal background or, where you stand on theology, these source materials offer a gripping real-time character study.
A study of what happens when human justice completely unravels.
Right. The very institutions designed to uphold the law become the ones intentionally breaking it. And the people wielding the absolute authority of the state somehow become, well, hostages to a screaming crowd.
And that's precisely why this specific sequence of events is so highly scrutinized by historians and scholars alike.
Because every layer is tested.
Exactly. You have every single layer of ancient society tested in this pressure cooker of a narrative. The religious elite, the political middle managers, the working class soldiers.
And at every single level, the systems they rely on just fail.
Utterly fail.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really see the mechanics of that failure, we have to jump straight into the action on that fateful Thursday night.
The trial.
Right. The narrative kicks off with the religious elite, the Sanhedrin, convening to put Jesus on trial. And if you just, glance at the record, it has the veneer of a formal legal proceeding.
Well, it has the veneer, sure. But beneath that surface, it was a complete legal sham. I mean, it was a kangaroo court.
The sources are pretty clear on that.
Oh, yeah. The outlines you provided point out that the High Court actually committed at least 15 distinct violations of their own established legal code just to secure this conviction.
Wait, 15 separate violations?
At least 15, yeah.
How does the highest court in the land break its own rules 15 times in one night?
By being utterly desperate. I mean, to understand the gravity of this, you have to look at why Jewish law was structured the way it was in the first place.
It was designed to protect people. Right.
Exactly. Their legal code was meticulously designed with these strict safeguards to prevent innocent people from being railroaded by mob mentality.
Like the rule about night trials.
Right. Capital cases were strictly forbidden to be held at night. Why? Because darkness hides corruption. Trials had to be held in the daylight, in the public courts, where the community could actually watch.
To hold the judges accountable.
Precisely.
And instead, they meet in the middle of the night, in the high priest's private residence.
Yeah, they totally removed public accountability. Then they relied on contradictory witnesses. And ancient Jewish law was incredibly strict about this.
If the witnesses didn't match perfectly?
Right. If two witnesses didn't match perfectly in their testimony, they were supposed to be punished for perjury, and the prisoner would be immediately released.
A safeguard against framing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here, the judges just ignore the contradictions and keep parading people in. They lack a full quorum, they take no official vote, and most egregiously, the judge acts as the aggressive prosecutor.
Which goes back to that modern analogy we started with. Imagine the Supreme Court holding a capital murder trial at 2:00 a.m. in the Chief Justice's living room. And the judge is also the lead witness.
It's unbelievable.
It is literal judicial murder.
It is. But all of this frantic, illegal maneuvering, it actually hits a brick wall.
Because Jesus remains completely silent.
Right. He offers no defense for them to twist. So finally, the high priest just loses his patience. He abandons all the conflicting witnesses, steps up, and asks him directly, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed?"
And breaking his silence, Jesus simply replies, "I am."
What's fascinating here is Jesus wasn't convicted on some convoluted legal technicality. He was condemned explicitly for who he claimed to be.
Because in that culture, saying "I am" wasn't just like confirming a royal title.
No, not at all. I am is the sacred name of God given to Moses at the burning bush. He then doubles down, telling them they would see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power.
Wow.
Yeah, he bypassed all ambiguity. He directly claimed divine identity.
And the text shows the reaction is instantaneous. They finally have what they need to condemn him for blasphemy.
And the moment they do, all that fake judicial decorum just evaporates. The highest religious leaders in the land literally tear their own clothes.
They start spitting on him, right? Blindfolding him and beating him.
Yeah, demanding he use his supposed prophetic powers to guess who is hitting him. The systemic breakdown is total. The judges basically become a gang.
But the narrative doesn't just stay in that upper room. The sources point out how it draws this brilliant thematic line from the palace upstairs down to the courtyard below.
The contrast there is staggering.
It really is. Because while the elite leaders are intentionally breaking the law upstairs, down in the chilly courtyard, one of Jesus's most passionate disciples is accidentally breaking his own loyalty by a flickering campfire.
We're talking about Peter,
Yeah.
the man who just hours earlier forcefully swore he would rather die than abandon his teacher.
Right.
But now, separated from his leader, surrounded by hostile temple guards warming themselves by the fire, well, pure self-preservation just takes over.
He's cornered by a servant girl, not even an armed guard, just a servant. And he completely panics, denying he even knows Jesus.
3 separate times.
Yeah, he even starts invoking curses on himself to prove he has absolutely no association with this Galilean. And then comes this incredible detail in the notes you provided about the rooster crowing.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we usually picture this as a quiet pastoral moment, right? A farm animal waking up as the sun rises.
That is a very common misconception. But the historical context from the sources provides a much sharper picture. Jerusalem was a heavily occupied Roman city.
Right, lots of soldiers.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The Romans divided the night into 4 military watches, and at exactly 3:00 a.m., to mark the end of the third watch, the guard changed at the nearby Fortress Antonia.
Okay.
To signal this change, a piercing military bugle was blown. In Latin, that specific, unmistakable trumpet blast was known as the Gallicinium.
Which literally translates to the cockcrow.
Precisely.
Wow, that changes the perspective completely. It wasn't just some bird chirping in the distance. It was a blaring, echoing military horn cutting through the quiet of the city at exactly 3:00 a.m.
And that sharp, jarring sound shatters Peter's panic.
It snaps him back to reality.
It does. He realizes what he's just done, and he breaks down into bitter tears. It's this devastating collision with his own profound weakness. The illusion of his own courage is just gone.
I do want to push back on the traditional reading of this a bit, though.
Yep.
Based on what you brought us,
Sure.
historically, Peter gets judged incredibly harshly for this. He's branded a coward. But is that really fair?
How do you mean?
Well, isn't this actually a profound, highly relatable look at the intoxicating pressure of cultural acceptance? I mean, haven't we all at some point warmed ourselves by the fire of the crowd rather than risk our social standing or our security?
Well, we have to hold 2 things in tension here, according to the sources. On one hand, he did make a sworn oath to die for this man, and he objectively failed to keep it when the pressure was applied.
Right.
So the cowardice is real. But on the other hand, your point about relatability is exactly why this text resonates so deeply. We shouldn't throw stones at Peter. I mean, he at least followed Jesus as far as the hostile courtyard, which the other disciple didn't even attempt.
Right. The pressure of the crowd is a universal human experience. He wanted to blend in. He just wanted to survive the night.
And perhaps the most compelling piece of this courtyard scene is how we even have the story in the first place.
Oh, because he was alone.
Exactly. Think about it. Peter was alone with his enemies. No other disciple was there to witness his internal breakdown or his tears. The only way the writer, Mark, could have known this deeply embarrassing, humiliating detail is if Peter himself shared it later in life.
Wow. Which highlights a massive level of humility.
He really does.
He wanted his own failure recorded to show that human failure isn't final. But while Peter is weeping in the dark, the religious leaders upstairs are waiting for the sun to rise.
Because they have their religious conviction for blasphemy now.
Right, but under Roman occupation, they completely lack the legal authority to execute anyone.
Which forces a massive shift in their strategy. As morning breaks, they drag Jesus from the religious courts over to the Roman fortress, the Praetorium, to stand before Pontius Pilate.
Because Pilate is the one with the authority.
Yes. And they know a Roman governor couldn't care less about a Jewish theological dispute over the name of God. So they change the charge entirely.
They make it political.
Exactly. They frame it as a political crime.
Right.
Treason against the emperor. They claim Jesus is a revolutionary setting himself up as a rival king.
Now, when we hear Pontius Pilate, we usually picture this like stoic, iron-fisted, decisive Roman aristocrat. But the background material paints a much more precarious picture of the man, doesn't it?
Oh, vastly different. Pilate wasn't an aristocratic mastermind at all. He was actually a former slave who'd managed to climb the political ladder to become a governor.
Really? A former slave.
Yeah, and his track record in this region was atrocious. He was basically a petty tyrant who made terrible, bloody blunders.
Like what?
Well, he previously antagonized the religious leaders by setting up Roman standards in the temple, which caused a massive riot. To quell it, he sent plainclothes soldiers into the crowds to slaughter protesters.
Oh, wow. So he is basically a walking liability for Rome.
Exactly. And the emperor, Tiberius Caesar, was well aware of this. He had essentially sent Pilate a final warning. One more riot in your province and you are finished.
Fired, or worse.
Or worse. So he's walking on eggshells. The religious leaders know this, and they are leveraging a potential riot against his career.
And suddenly, Pilate's actions make perfect sense. He's trying to find any loophole to make this problem just go away.
Right. He actually tries 8 distinct maneuvers to release Jesus without triggering a riot.
8.
8. He demands they state an official charge. He examines the prisoner privately and finds no fault in him. He even tries to pass the buck by noticing Jesus is from Galilee, so he sends him over to Herod's jurisdiction.
But Herod just sends him right back.
Yeah. So Pilate resorts to a horrific compromise. He orders a brutal flogging, hoping that whipping Jesus within an inch of his life will somehow satisfy the mob's bloodlust so he can just let him go.
But the crowd, agitated by the religious leaders, they just scream louder for crucifixion.
So Pilate attempts to exploit a holiday custom, a Passover prisoner swap. He offers them a choice. He will release Jesus, or he will release a notorious violent insurrectionist named Barabbas.
And the irony here is so thick you can cut it with a knife. Because Barabbas isn't just a random name, right?
No, it's profoundly ironic. In Aramaic, bar means son, and Abba means father. The name Barabbas literally translates to son of the father.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. The crowd is aggressively demanding the release of a literal, violent son of the father instead of Jesus, who claimed to be the true spiritual son of the father. They chose the political revolutionary who would kill for their freedom over the man who stood completely silent.
It is an incredible choice. And while all this is happening, the tension for Pilate spikes even higher because his wife sends him an urgent message.
Oh, the dream.
Yeah, she tells him she suffered a terrifying nightmare about Jesus, warning Pilate to have absolutely nothing to do with this innocent man. And Romans did not mess around with dreams. They were deeply superstitious.
Extremely. So look at the trap Pilate is in. If he releases Jesus, the leaders riot, and Caesar likely ends his career or his life. If he executes Jesus, he caves to a mob, violates his own Roman justice system, and ignores a supernatural warning that genuinely terrifies him.
I mean, imagine being Pilate here. He is the ultimate terrified middle manager, paralyzed by office politics.
That's a great way to put it.
He's trapped between angry clients, the mob, his unforgiving CEO in Rome, and his own wife's premonitions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Pilate's dilemma reveals human nature. When squeezed, he chooses professional survival over justice.
He caves.
He caves. He performs this theatrical gesture of washing his hands in a basin before the crowd, claiming he is innocent of the blood, and he hands Jesus over. He thought he was preserving his legacy.
But instead, he secured his name in history for absolute cowardice.
Exactly.
He tried to wash his hands, but the stain never came out. So Pilate's psychological cowardice in the courtroom essentially greenlights the physical cruelty we are about to see in the barracks.
The legal maneuvers are over. The raw reality of Roman execution begins.
And while the text exercises restraint, it's not detailing the gore just to play on. But eventually they begin the march to Golgotha. They parade him through the streets. And as you mentioned, because of the scourge, Jesus collapses under the weight of the crossbeam.
You just can't physically do it.
Right. The Roman officer in charge needs someone to carry it to keep the schedule moving. But he can't force a Roman soldier because it's beneath their dignity.
And he can't force a Jewish citizen.
Exactly, because touching execution equipment would make them ritually unclean for the Passover festival, which would just start another riot.
So he grabs a completely random bystander.
An African traveler named Simon of Cyrene.
Yes, the text notes he is compelled, forced against his will, to carry this heavy timber for the European soldiers.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why does the text suddenly pause to emphasize the name of this one random unlucky traveler? What does Simon's story tell us about how an unwanted, forced interruption can completely rewrite a family's legacy?
Well, it pauses because Simon didn't remain a random bystander. The early records trace how this exact, agonizing moment transformed him.
Because he was so close to it all?
Right. He was forced into this horrific situation. But as he walked behind Jesus, intimately witnessing how this man suffered, witnessing his unnatural restraint and silence, Simon was changed.
Wow.
He eventually became a prominent leader in the early Christian church in Antioch. The writer, Mark, even assumes his original readers will personally know Simon's sons, Alexander and Rufus.
That's amazing. A completely unwanted, forced interruption ends up rewriting an entire family's legacy. It really makes you rethink the frustrating or painful interruptions in your own life, you know?
It certainly does.
But they finally arrive at Golgotha. It's 9:00 a.m. Jesus is crucified. And contrary to the sanitized artwork we usually see, the Romans stripped victims completely naked to maximize the public shame.
They also offered him a standard narcotic wine mingled with myrrh, designed to slightly deaden the intense, suffocating pain of crucifixion,
But he refuses it. Why?
to remain fully conscious. According to the sources, he actively chose not to have his senses numbed. He was committed to facing the sheer terror of the ordeal entirely sober.
He wanted to be present.
Yes. If he had taken the narcotic, he wouldn't have possessed the clarity to make the coherent, profound statements he made during those final hours.
So from 9:00 a.m. to noon, the hill just echoes with insults. The religious leaders stroll by mocking him, the soldiers mock him, even the criminals beside him join in.
It's relentless.
But at exactly noon, the mockery abruptly stops. Because nature itself reacts.
A dense, supernatural darkness blankets the entire region from noon until 3:00 p.m. The text doesn't frame this as a mere solar eclipse, by the way. It is presented as a tangible, physical manifestation of divine judgment.
And out of that heavy darkness, Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The outlines highlight that this is the moment he is bearing the weight of human sin, experiencing a tearing separation from the divine presence for the first time in eternity.
And then, at exactly 3:00 p.m., he dies.
At 3 p.m.
Yeah, the timing of 3:00 p.m. is not incidental. It was the precise hour when thousands of Passover lambs were actively being slaughtered by the priests in the temple just across the city.
The synchronization is just staggering. But it's what happens inside that temple at that exact moment that is truly wild.
The veil.
Right. We read that the massive temple curtain tears completely in half. Now, for someone unfamiliar with ancient Jewish temple architecture, why is a piece of fabric ripping such a monumental deal?
Because it wasn't just a curtain. It was a massive theological barrier.
Yeah.
The veil was incredibly thick, reportedly 60 feet high, and it separated the public spaces from the Holy of Holies.
The inner sanctuary.
Exactly, the inner sanctuary where the pure presence of God dwelled. In their culture, God's holiness was so intense, so consuming, that human imperfection couldn't survive being near it. Only the high priest could pass through that curtain.
And only once a year, right?
Only once a year, and only after an exhausting checklist of blood sacrifices to temporarily cover his sins.
So it was the ultimate keep-out sign, a constant visual reminder of the separation between humanity and the divine.
Exactly, which is why the tearing of it is the climax of the theology here. And the text notes a very specific detail about the tear.
Right, tears from top to bottom.
This raises an important question. Why explicitly mention the direction? Well, because a 60-foot heavy tapestry couldn't be ripped that way by human hands.
Right, if a mob had done it, they would have started at the floor.
Precisely. Tearing from the top down was a visual declaration that the action originated from God. The physical temple, the human priests, the endless animal sacrifices, the entire old system of human mediators and ritual checklists was permanently dismantled. The barrier was destroyed from the inside out.
Direct access was suddenly open, and we see the immediate real-world fallout of that barrier coming down in the actions of a man named Joseph of Arimathea.
Yeah.
He was a wealthy, influential member of the very council that just condemned Jesus. But he had been a secret disciple.
Too afraid to speak up.
Exactly. For months, he had believed in Jesus, but he was too terrified of losing his wealth, his elite status, and his social standing to say a single word.
He was a man who stayed safely in the shadows while the sun was shining.
But now, when absolutely everything is lost, when the movement seems dead and being associated with Jesus is a literal death sentence, Joseph suddenly steps into the light,
He walks directly up to Pilate.
risks his life, and asks for the body so he can provide an honorable burial. It's an incredible shift. It points out this human tendency to stay in the shadows when things are risky, but it took the ultimate tragedy for this man to finally find his courage and take a public stand.
And he and a group of faithful women carefully wrap the body, place it in a tomb carved out of solid rock, and roll a massive stone against the entrance.
Bringing a crushing, heavy finality to the events of Friday, the legal manipulation, the political cowardice, the immense physical suffering, it all culminates in the cold reality of a sealed tomb.
It does.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize this profound stack of sources you brought us, the paradox becomes clear. The religious trial was an illegal sham driven by envy.
Peter's loyalty folded under the pressure of a courtyard fire.
Pilate traded justice for his own political survival. Yet weaving through all of that systemic human failure is the quiet, staggering restraint of a king who actively chose to be silent, chose to be stripped, and chose to endure the darkness.
It is the ultimate testament to the idea that human failure, no matter how severe, cannot ultimately derail divine purpose. In fact, in this narrative, it is the very mechanism used to achieve it.
But the reality is the timeline of these documents doesn't end on the drama of Friday. It ends on Saturday, a day of absolute silence, a sealed tomb, crushed expectations. The disciples were hiding, terrified. They had no idea Sunday was coming.
It really doesn't.
And that leaves us with a provocative thought to carry with us, one that pushes this historical text right into the messy reality of our own lives. What happens to human belief when the absolute worst-case scenario actually happens? How do we handle the Saturdays in our own lives when justice seems completely defeated and we are forced to sit in the uncomfortable silence of the unknown?
That uncomfortable silence. That is the exact space where resilient faith is actually forged.
It really is. Well, thank you for bringing such rich, thought-provoking material for today's deep dive. It's been an incredible journey through the sources. We'll catch you on the next one.